Hello friends, this is Bilal Haider, and in this video part we're actually going to learn about how can we create functions or methods. Okay, and our goal is basically to create a method that prints hello world. So this is what we want to achieve, and we need to do this using by creating a function. So there are actually two ways to create a function. There is an old way and there is a new way. Okay, so in the past we used to create functions in JavaScript like this. So what you do is you create function and then you give your function a name. Okay, so you type function, the keyword, then you give your function a name, and after that you put parentheses like this, and then you um, create a body of the function. Okay, then you can type whatever you want this function to do, maybe go to Mars or create a user account or whatever you can think about, whatever your program demands you to do. So for now we are just creating a console log. So what we can do, we can type hello world, and by doing this we have actually created a function that we can call anywhere in our program. Okay, so now that we have created this function, if I run this program, nothing's going to happen because because we're not calling this function from anywhere within our program. So the first thing is you create the function. The second thing, if you want to use this function anywhere in your program, you call it like this. Okay, you type your function name and the parentheses. These parentheses are important because later on we'll learn to pass in some values to the function, but for now we are just printing hello world. So this is we are calling this function here. So now if I save my program and run the program, you'll say that it says hello world. The beauty of writing function is that we can use them over and over again. Okay, so let's say we created a function which prints our username. So we can call the function anywhere in our program, and it's going to say it's going to return our username. Okay, so let's say I call this function twice, so I can do so. So the beauty of this is that we need to create the function only once, and I can call it maybe 1000 times or 100 times, however many times our program demands it. So this was the method that's old method. I mean, this method was used when we did not have this new method. Okay, and that's what I prefer now to use, and that is by creating a variable, just like we create variables for storing our constant values in them, or string values in them, or JSON objects in them, or arrays in them. We can now also store functions in them. So what we can do here, we create a variable const hello equals, and we type the parentheses, then we put equals and greater than symbol, and then we put the body of our function. So this is a function and it's called anonymous function, and I can now put console.log and I can say hello world, right? So similarly we can just call this function from anywhere within our programs, and if I run this code now, it's going to say hello world. So these are two methods which we can use to create our own functions, and I personally use this one now, and but if you're writing other people's code, then you might find the other way of creating functions. So I thought I must also tell you about that. So now let's talk about how can we pass values to functions. Okay, let's say we want to create a function which if we pass a value to it, it should print that instead of just hello world. So what we can do here, we can create a variable and store a message in it, and let's say our message says hello world, and we want to pass this value to this function, and we want it to print this value. Okay, so what we can do here, when we are creating this function, we say that it's going to accept a value. Okay, it we are saying that it's going to accept something. Okay, it can be a message, it can be a name, it can be anything. And this variable which we are specifying here, it can be anything. This is what it's up to you. You can name it name, you can name it message, you can name it x, you can name it y, whatever you want. And instead of printing hello world, you print name. Okay, so or whatever you have whatever specified here. So now this hello is not going to, it probably will work. Let's see. So it says undefined, so this name is undefined. So even though we are calling this, it's saying undefined. But if I now pass this message to this function, so this was the part where we created the function, and this is the part when we are calling the function. So now if I pass this value to this function, okay, we can print the message. We can print this message which we have stored in our variable message. Okay, if I change this message now to hello globe, right, and if I run this now, it will say hello globe, and I can directly pass a value here. So what I can do here, I can, instead of creating a separate variable and storing a value inside of that variable, I can remove this variable, and I can directly pass a message here. So I can say hello Bilal, and if I save and if I run this code now, it's going to say hello Bilal. Okay, so that way if our program needs to have methods, like if we want to do something repeatedly in our program, it is good idea to create a function for it and just call it whenever you want it. Okay, so let's say we want to log user about something, like the user has inserted a wrong password or something. So instead of creating this instead of creating same thing over and over again, okay, we can just use the same function that we have created and pass a different value. So let's say hello, and you have inserted a wrong password, right? So even though we have different value here, now we can use it in our program. So if I run the code, the first line will say hello Bilal, the second line will say you have inserted a wrong password, and by doing so, by creating a function, we can reuse it again and again in our program whenever we need it. Okay, so this is one use. This semicolon is not important anymore, so even if you you create an instruction and you put a semicolon after it. If you don't insert a semicolon after it, it's still going to work. So if I don't put a semicolon, it's still going to work. So yeah, and we are not just limited to passing a constant value to a function. We can pass arrays to a function, we can pass JSON objects to a function, we can pass function to a function. So it's very powerful when we write functions in our program. So let's actually create another example here, something useful. Let's create a function which is going to add two values together, and it's going to console log the result of them. So let's create a function and let's call it add values, and now our function is going to take expect two values. So we pass in value 1 and value 2. Remember, you can give these variables any names you want, but you need to make sure that you use same variable names inside of your function. So what I can do now, I can see console log here value 1 plus value 2, right? And I did a mistake, I need to put this thing here. So now we have correctly created this add values function, and now what we can do, we can call it and we can maybe pass 4 and 5, and we can create another function and we can maybe pass 12 and 45, right? So if I now execute this code here, the result of first one is 9, the result of second one is 57. So this is just another example to show you that you can use functions to perform certain logic in your program, arithmetics in your program, whatever you want your functions to do. You build your logic and those functions will do that thing for you. So let's say later on when we will learn more things about JavaScript, maybe we will create a method where we will send a username and a password, right? And we will call it authenticate, right? So we are creating a method which we are calling authenticate, and this authenticate method is going to expect a username and password. It will require the user to provide a username and password, and it's going to check in it's going to go into the database, and it will check whether this username exists, and it's going to check whether the password the user has provided matches the password that we have in our database for the user. And if it matches with the password which we have in our database, then it's going to return true, which will tell our program that yes, this user has correctly authenticated, and we can allow the user to submit posts, make comments, likes, whatever. Okay, so this is, I mean, I'm just telling you what possibilities you might have, and what you can do with the functions basically. So I think this is all for now about functions. We just learned the basics about how we can create functions and what those functions can do for us. We have learned about what was the old method of creating a function, and what's the new method of creating a function, and how can we use them basically. I guess yes, for now this is it. um,